Hi, welcome to my channel. Ooh, bitter. Hello, so I want to talk today about a book I finished, I think last week, and that is The First to Die at the End. This is a prequel to this book, which is They Both Die at the End. I read They Both Die at the End, I don't know, the beginning of the year. It was a very popular book, I don't know, this year or last year, I'm not quite sure. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cute, very, very sweet. In this book, it's a world that is very similar to ours, except for one thing, that there's something called Deathcast. And Deathcast, every night at midnight, calls anyone who is going to die within the next 24 hours to give them a heads up. And in this book, you follow the lives of these two boys, Rufus and Mateo, and their last day here on Earth. Adam Silva, the author, wrote a follow-up book, which is The First to Die at the End. This is supposed to be the prequel. It says at the top, the prequel to They Both Die at the End. So, I just got done reading this book, and I want to talk about this book in comparison to this book. So let's begin with the most glaring comparison, the size. It's ridiculous. So, They Both Die at the End is 373 pages. They Both Die at the End is 549 pages. 200 more pages in this book than in this book. And so when I first saw that, I was like, all right, well, I know that They Both Die at the End is a YA. It's pretty simple to read, so let me begin this book. It took me 1 month to finish this book, and it was not because of its size. So this book, if you read the blurb at the beginning, it's still about two boys named Orion and Valentino, and it is the launch night of Deathcast. So the very first night it goes into play. Which is interesting. It could be really interesting if they're talking about Deathcast. So the way the two books are laid out is in here there's one chapter about Mateo, one chapter about Rufus, and then it goes back and forth, and then there's another chapter about something else. This book is the same. So one chapter about Orion, one chapter about Valentino, and then it goes back and forth between other stories. One of which is Deathcast, the person who invented Deathcast and his family. But they never say anything about Deathcast. Nothing. It's just like what him and his family did that night. She took a nap, his son did this, like there was no reason. You could take every single chapter about Deathcast out and you would still know as much as you did before you started reading the book. There's no reason to have these chapters in there, and it's a prequel. It's a prequel. You're supposed to, in a prequel, give information that helps you better understand the other book that you read. Instead, what it is it's a story about Orion and Valentino. It took me 1 month to read this book. This book put me into a reading slump because I never really wanted to pick it up. And the reason I didn't want to pick it up is because, for all intents and purposes, it was this book. They're the same. It's the same story. Two boys living their last night on Earth. Two boys living the first time of the last night on Earth. There's one little twist in here, but it's the same story, 200 pages longer. In order to talk about this book, it's impossible to do so without comparing it to this, because you're just reading an extended version of this book. In here, you have Rufus and Mateo. They're flawed characters. They know where their shortcomings are. They know what struggles they have within themselves. Rufus is an orphan, and Mateo struggles with anxiety And when they come together in the book, they bring out good in one another. And so because of that, you root for the two of them. You really enjoy the relationship between the two. This book is also about these two boys. So in this book, there is Orion and Valentino. In this book, everything is so much more shallow. Everything kind of revolves around how good looking the two of them are. That's why they see each other. That's why they like one another. There's a lot of information about Orion's curls, and just over and over again how good looking they think one another is. It just is so shallow, and it doesn't need to be, because Orion is an orphan and Valentino is struggling with his parents. Like, when I say there's a similarity between these two books, I am not kidding. So there's all these circumstances around the two boys that could cause a lot of reflection, a lot of self-awareness, but that doesn't happen in the book. That's not there. It's not present. There's just a lot. It's like there's two characters with a lot of things, a lot of situations around them that are never delved into in any deep sort of way. And it's 200 pages longer than this book. I don't understand. Adam Silva is a writer. You would think he knows what prequel mean. There is nothing in this book necessary to understand this book. They are almost the same story. You can remove every chapter about Deathcast, and it's the exact same book. It is a story about two boys on their last day. Story about two boys on their last day. Oh, which, by the way, Mateo and Rufus make an appearance in this book, and they are still more interesting than the main characters. In this book, where they only have a chapter each, they are more interesting than Valentino and Orion. So would I recommend this book? The question is, have you read this book? So if you have not read either of these books, no, I do not recommend this book. I recommend this book. You know, it's shorter, 200 pages shorter, and it's deeper and just a better book, because they're the same. If you've read this one and you were like me, where you thought it was very nice, very sweet, wasn't really on any like best of lists or anything, but you still really liked it, it didn't make you cry or anything like that, like you just really enjoyed it, would I recommend this? No, because you've already read the better version of the same story. Stick with this one. You don't need this one. If you were one of the people who read this and was talking about how much you cried, because you just related so much to the two boys, and you were really affected by this book, if this was on your top 10 list for the year, then maybe you would like this book. I still don't think you're going to like it as much as this, but you might pick up other things from this book that I didn't. So, you know, whatever you think. I did not like this. I am so disappointed in this book. This is my biggest reading disappointment of 2024. What year is it? 2020 has us all messed up. This is by far my biggest disappointment of 2022. That's it. I read it, so you don't have to. I mean, if you want to, go ahead, but it's long and was not something I cared for. That's it. See you later. Bye. It's a prequel. Like, what are you prequeling?